Joe, this one was the most chaotic game of the weekend for me. Auburn goes into Norman and loses. Joe, I don't even know where we start here, but I kick it off to you. I really don't know what to make of it, but Auburn goes down in Norman. Oklahoma survives.
Yeah, because we already talked about this at the beginning, I kind of think that we don't need to bring it up again. Well, there's no point in reading
clips, just in case for clips, but
I don't think it's necessary to relitigate the penalty stuff was what I was specifically pointing at. I know that it's important to talk about that there were a lot of calls that did not go their way. The Satania touchdown where he looked like he was coming off the field. We could spend an hour on that, Blake. I just want to focus more specifically on these teams and what we learned about these teams.
Yeah.
I think that Oklahoma, to me, Blake, a lot of the stuff that we found out after the Michigan game still remains true. I feel like I didn't really learn anything like really, really new about this Oklahoma team. And what I mean is we saw against Michigan, they're fast, they're physical, they're frightening on defense. And Brent Venables taking over the defensive play calling was the smartest thing that they could have done when they desperately needed that type of energy injected into their defense. The athleticism all over that unit is going to win them games. John Mateer is the best improviser in college football right now. And when things break down and they don't go well, despite his offensive line having a lot of inconsistencies, he keeps that offense alive. And he's a great rusher when their run game can't get going. And I bring that up to say
he is their run game.
He is. So I bring that up to say we were kind of just given the same information we knew after the Michigan game. They still can't run the ball. Blaylock, their number one running back in this game, goes 11 for 13 for 1.2 yards per carry. And it made me start to think, Blake, what is a good example of a team in the past that had similar issues where really talented quarterback who's one of the best in the country, good, really is talented physical quality defense, playmakers, speed at receiver, all that stuff, but they couldn't run the ball and it cost them. And I thought of Miami from last year. And for Oklahoma fans, you want to keep coming in here and saying, like, we don't need to run the ball. We don't need to have a run game. But whatever excuse you want to make, it shit doesn't work. It doesn't work in football. Look at all the teams that advanced to the final 8 in the college football playoff. They all were dominant along the line of scrimmage. They all had quality offensive lines. They all ran the ball well. You can't run the ball well. It's going to catch up to you at some point. This Oklahoma team
catch up
9-3.
4 weeks. It's going to catch up to them the next 4 weeks. I mean, you can't do that.
They could still end up going 9-3, which is totally doable with the talent they have on this roster, but they're going to lose games because they can't run the ball. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I agree. But listen, I thought, look, the 14-point swing is a 14-point swing. And sometimes in seasons, Joe, you got to be more lucky than good. And everybody gets a little bit of luck. But to your point, the longest run that Oklahoma had yesterday was a 9-yard scramble by John Mateer. Okay, that just is not going to cut it. Blaylock being 11 for 13 is not going to cut it. But really and truthfully, their defense was able to get to Jackson Arnold, and I thought half of those sacks of the 10 that they had, which they had 10 sacks, which is absolutely ridiculous. Jackson Arnold created 5 of them by hesitating, not throwing the football, not giving Cam Coleman enough opportunities. Joe, Cam Coleman, I know, had the pass interferences. 3 catches, 88 yards. How are you walking out of Norman with not giving him at least 12 to 15 targets? How? Joe, if they want to bracket him, make them bracket. Make them do whatever. But how many times are you going to run a fade route with him and just say, hey, have at it? I don't understand what Auburn was doing. But I didn't learn a lot from Oklahoma outside of that. I still think they're really good on defense. I still think they do a lot of really good things. I think that you look at Jackson Arnold and the inability to throw the football or the lack of awareness and running into some of those sacks killed them. I think that Oklahoma did not play a good game and still was able to find some luck in some situations, whether it be the Centennial catch, whether it be him running off the field, or whether it be the fumble, all being Isaiah Centennial, ironically, that it was happening with. You got some breaks. But, Joe, the only reason that game and Auburn took the lead, the only reason was because you could not run the football. Let's not forget this. you were set. The score at one point was 17-16. You were down, and John Mateer had a fantastic drive to ultimately win you the game. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you couldn't separate as quickly as you could, like Joe, for example, the punt that Auburn had the issue with, like you got to capitalize on every one of these situations, and they didn't. I saw two teams that, quite honestly, looked anemic running the football. They're trying to throw the ball 32 times with Jackson Arnold, and that's a joke. Actually, 42 dropbacks, Joe, 42 that you had, and he had 10 sacks. Jackson Arnold's not the guy that can go into Norman and throw the ball 42 times. He's not. Jeremiah Cobb, six carries, 61 yards. He had a long 40-yard run, and I get that. How are you not going back to him? Auburn, quite frankly, and listen, I hate doing this. Like, you want to give Oklahoma credit for what they did defensively, even offensively with John Mateer. But I got to be real with you. I thought Auburn just flat out lost it. Auburn flat out lost that football game. And look, I know, I guess I technically win the pick'ems because it was 6.5, but it doesn't matter. Like, you literally had a situation where you try to make your entire offensive game plan around Jackson Arnold. How can you do that?
That is what was the most perplexed by, and I think that's where my attention's drawn to is talking about Auburn, because they have a really good defense. I stand by the statements I had in the preview. That defense looked
they got speed,
very talented, man. They're very, very good defense, and they're great up front, and they're deep. But I don't understand why the philosophy was we need to run Jackson Arnold 1,000,000 times, and we don't need to give Jeremiah Cobb the football. If they actually leaned on Jeremiah Cobb a little bit more, I think that game goes completely differently. I really think that it does. Dude, I mean, this isn't even
not run a route past 5 yards.
Right. I got to say this. Is this the beginning of the fall off for Hugh? Is this the beginning of him getting fired at the end of the season? Because if they can't, with this type of roster, succeed, there's a serious problem. Jackson Arnold.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Arnold just doesn't have the inner timer in the pocket to know how to operate when he's going up against a defense that is that fast.
You can't hold the ball again. Joe, he's faced this defense more than anybody in America.
Yeah, he's holding the ball way too much, and that's such a problem for him. He shouldn't be throwing the ball 32 times, and he shouldn't be – I know that there's 10 sacks involved with his 21 carries, but you shouldn't have as many designed carries as you did with him. The decision-making by Hugh Freeze in this was incredibly problematic, and it was a total polar opposite of Venables dominating as the coordinator while Hugh got his ass completely cooked.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. They almost just went out there and out-talented them, though. And that's the part. I thought it was coaching malpractice. Look, Oklahoma fans think that we hate them, and we don't. You can't have 35 rushing yards.
No, it doesn't work.
You cannot have 35. You're not going to beat teams by doing that. And look, you got away with it this week. You're not going to get away with it moving forward. I promise you that. All right.
Yeah.